Welcome to another episode of PotCast. I am your host, Mo, and as you can see, we are at SAHPRA. Finally, 2 years in the making, wanting this interview, and I finally got it. I am being joined by a gentleman who's hopefully going to answer all the questions that are within the cannabis industry that need answering. How are you, sir?
Hi, and you?
I am awesome. Please do introduce yourself to the viewers.
Sure. Good day, my name is Dion Pooven. I'm the Senior Manager for Inspectorate and Regulatory Compliance at SAHPRA. Basically, my role and the role of my program is to look at licensing of establishments, regulatory inspections, as well as regulatory compliance matters in the pharmaceutical industry.
That's a big role, eh?
Yes.
Do you sleep?
Yes.
Okay. Let's get right into it. Can you please explain what SAHPRA is or what SAHPRA's role is within the cannabis industry?
Sure. I can give broadly a description of what SAHPRA is. So SAHPRA is the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority. And basically what SAHPRA does is regulate medicines, medical devices, and IVDs that people use and the public uses in the Republic of South Africa. What we also do is regulate products that are made in South Africa that are medicines, medical devices, or IVDs that are also exported out of South Africa. So it's very important to have a body like SAHPRA, which ensures the quality, safety, and efficacy and performance of products so that our public is protected, as well as anybody that we export to, that those products also help them instead of harming them. And in a nutshell, that is what SAHPRA does.
Okay. Alrighty. I hope you guys got all of that. Because I've interviewed a lot of people and I've asked for SAHPRA and they didn't actually get into so much detail like you just did.
Oh, there's a lot more detail.
Please,
but that was just a summary.
Okay. Excuse me. Can you then please explain the different types of licenses that there are in regards to cannabis?
Okay, so with regards to cannabis,
yeah,
right? So what SAHPRA does is we would license people who manufacture, wholesale, or distribute, or import and export medicines. So cannabis mostly falls under the medicines part of what SAHPRA does. So we would, and it's not only medicines, it's also scheduled substances. So we also control that. So cannabis falls across a spectrum of both scheduled substance as well as manufactured product, because you can cultivate the plant, you can take it from cultivation right up until harvesting, cutting and drying, which is where our cannabis cultivators are licensed. They will cultivate all the way to cutting and drying and making bulk cannabis flowers for export. And then SAHPRA also licenses people or companies who take that dried flower and then further do extractions, the distillations, and all of those things, and make actual products out of that for medicinal purposes. So, and then we would also license people to export those products outside of South Africa. So in terms of the licenses that apply to cannabis, just to summarize, it would be the cultivation, which you're basically creating the active pharmaceutical ingredient, whether it be CBD or whether it be THC or even both, depending on what it is that you want to have in the flower. And then also what people then do with that flower is, and going further on into finished product, we will also license those activities. Anything that's got to do with making a medicine at the end of the day is what SAHPRA will license.
Okay then, interesting. And can you then explain what an EU GMP license or facility is all about?
Okay, so in order for you to get your license, either to cultivate or to manufacture, you need to comply with good manufacturing practices. Now, good manufacturing practices is a set of standards and requirements. It's got about 9 chapters in it. Also depends on whether you're looking at GMP for active pharmaceutical ingredients or you're looking at GMP for finished products. Now, across the globe, medicines are made according to good manufacturing practices. So South Africa's got their own good manufacturing practices, and we adhere or we align to the good manufacturing practice standard that is created by an organization called PICS. So we are a PICS country. If you go to the PICS website, you'll see all the countries that have adopted the PICS GMP.
Okay.
Now, a couple of European countries, or a lot of them actually, if not all of them, also belong to PIC. So they would use the same GMP, maybe a little bit nuanced here and there. But basically, they would also require that medicines and active pharmaceutical ingredients are manufactured according to GMP. Now, EU GMP means that this is GMP that the EU accepts. So it doesn't mean that the GMP that SAHPRA or South Africa uses is not the same as the EU GMP. What it means is that the EU may not necessarily accept SAHPRA's inspection of the facility because we don't have a mutual recognition agreement with them where they will automatically recognize our inspections. So, say for example, you have a cannabis facility in South Africa and you get inspected by SAHPRA, and SAHPRA then, based on the outcome of your inspection, you comply with GMP for the steps that you've done. So with the cannabis cultivators, it's from cultivating the product right up until the bulk flower. So we will say, okay, for those manufacturing steps that you are doing, you have demonstrated to us that you have got GMP. And we say that you comply with South African GMP.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Now, what companies can do, or licensed cultivators can do, as long as they've got a valid acceptance of GMP by SAHPRA, they can apply for a GMP certificate from SAHPRA. And SAHPRA will then say, okay, based on the fact that you've got this letter from us saying that you comply with GMP, we will give you a certificate that you can show to other people that you've got GMP that has been inspected by SAHPRA. SAHPRA will put on there that we've inspected you according to ICHQ7, which is GMP for active pharmaceutical ingredients, right? And we will say that that is also equivalent to the GMP in the EU. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the country that you are exporting to will accept SAHPRA's GMP certificate. They might want to go and inspect your facility themselves. So countries have that right, just like we have that right to also inspect. So we might get a GMP certificate from a certain country when we are bringing product into South Africa, when people are registering product in South Africa. We might get a document that says this facility in this particular country, I don't want to mention countries, but this facility in this particular country has got, we're giving you their inspection certificate to say that this country says this country, that this facility has GMP. It is up to us as South Africa, as SAHPRA, to decide whether or not we're going to accept that certificate or whether we want to go and inspect that facility ourselves. So that is why you would see that some countries will accept SAHPRA's GMP certificate and some countries will say, we want to come and inspect the facility.
I understand. And it's quite a costly exercise.
It is. It is.
Are you able to speak on the costs on all these licenses?
So yes, in order for you to have a SAHPRA license to cultivate, which is basically a license to manufacture the active pharmaceutical ingredient, but specifically for cannabis, it's 25,200 Rand for a SAHPRA license.
Okay.
Once you qualify for that license, it's a 3,400 Rand for you to get the actual license with the issuing of the license. So that's a gazetted fee. But you also need to be inspected by SAHPRA, and SAHPRA charges an hourly rate per inspector, which does not include the travel time, although it is capped according to our inspection fees guideline. So you need to have that 25,200 in order to apply for the license. You need to have money for the inspection, which normally will take about a day, max 2 days, but it also depends on what the inspectors see. So you cannot just cap the actual inspection amount. We can't create that expectation. It depends on what the inspector sees. So you need to have money at hourly rate for the inspection report, and then it's the 3,400 Rand for the issuing of the license, should you comply with South African GMP.
Then why do people say it's millions? Is the millions coming in regards to setting up the actual facility? or because I know there's a lot of requirements that go into you guys providing the certificate. Are you able to tap into what those requirements are, and if indeed setting up the facility is about millions? Because I've heard it's ridiculous amount of money.
I actually cannot comment on how much it costs.
Okay, to setting up. All right.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
but then
I am the regulator, representing the regulator.
Okay,
Yes.
no, I hear you. And then are you able then to speak on the requirements that you guys are looking for when you are actually going to be issuing these licenses for the facilities?
Yeah, so basically, the requirements are in the GMPs.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a separate guideline for cannabis just to kind of focus the cultivators. That guideline was developed when the framework started coming in. So people who specifically want to look at licensing cannabis for the purposes of medicinal use, right? Mm-hmm. Just remember, SAHPRA is medicinal
I understand, not recreational.
No, not recreational.
Yeah.
So, and there's a specific reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's because SAHPRA needs to ensure the safety, quality, and efficacy of this, and also we need to ensure that your facility is able to prevent diversion into the illicit market. So that is why there's requirements in the cannabis cultivation guidelines. They speak about not only about the quality of the product, but they also speak about security. What must you demonstrate in order to show that your facility, there won't be any sort of diversion of what you are making into the illicit market.
And then I don't know if you can talk about this, but how long does it normally take for you guys to go and inspect a facility and then say, okay, everything is in order? And then let's say there's a few things that are missing. How long does it then take for SAHPRA to go back to that facility to go and inspect and be able to produce the license or the certificate to the individuals?
Okay.
What is the duration of that?
Yeah, so it really depends.
Okay.
I can give you a quick overview of the licensing process. So once if you want, like,
yes, I would like, of course.
That's okay. So once you apply for the license, right, we would check that your application meets the administrative requirements. So obviously the application form and all the attachments and all of those things are in there. You would then get an acknowledgement letter to say, yes, we've received your application administratively, all the stuff are there. What then happens is that application gets referred to our inspectors, and it depends on the capacity of our inspectors, to actually conduct the inspection. The site will tell us when they are ready, but it also depends on when we are able to get to the site. So there's a lot of
logistics
maybe
and
logistics and back and forth capacity requirements. Once we get to the site, once the site agrees to the inspection date and we agree and we go to the site, we will inspect the site. Right? Within 30 working days, we must provide the site with an inspection report. That inspection report will give a good context about the site, a good description about the site, but it will also tell them where they have got non-compliances or deficiencies, let's call it deficiencies, and then they then have 30 days to address those deficiencies and provide us with a response. Now, when it comes to responses, sometimes those are quite big things that they need to do, so it might not be able to get done within 30 days. We expect that those deficiencies are addressed within 30 days, but sometimes the site will say, this is something big that we need to do, there's our plan, so they basically motivate us to say, we can't close this particular deficiency. We will then take that into consideration, and then we might decide that we need to do a verification inspection.
Okay.
So they will then tell us, we will then say, okay, listen, when it comes to a verification inspection, we will say, we cannot take what you're saying into consideration. We actually need to see that this has been done. We will then plan the verification inspection with the site. Right? And then we will do a verification inspection. We will then do a whole report again within 30 working days, and they will respond to us. Or verification inspection might actually show that what we were concerned about has actually been addressed. Right? It all depends. Then after that, if we are happy, we will then give them what is called a resolution letter. And it's basically, we are giving you a resolution as to your compliance status with GMP. If it's positive, it goes to the licensing unit, and the licensing unit processes your license.
Okay.
If it's negative, it also goes to the licensing unit and then they will process a rejection of the license.
Okay. But then, even if they do reject, you still have time to try and fix the issues, isn't it? So that you guys can then go back again and see. The rejection is not the end of it, or is it?
It kind of is. You can then reapply.
Yes, that's what I mean. If you've been rejected, that means you need to start the whole process all over again.
Okay.
Oh, okay. It's not the end, basically.
No.
Oh, okay. I would like to speak on the seeds, if we can touch base on that.
Sure.
Because there's a misconception, and please do clarify this for me if you are able to, that you cannot purchase cannabis seeds because it's illegal or something like that, right? But then how are you then going to be planting the seeds if it's illegal, especially for, let's say, I know you cannot really touch base on recreational because you guys are mostly medicinal, but if you can, please do speak on the seeds.
Yeah, I actually cannot speak on the seeds because seeds is not
Department of Agriculture.
Yeah, it's not actually within our mandate as SAHPRA.
Yeah.
It falls under the Department of.
I'll just try my luck. Just try my luck. Okay, and then cannabis is still regarded as a drug. For people that are within the cannabis industry, we send proposals trying to partner with various individuals. But because there's still this thing that cannabis is still classified as a drug, is that ever going to change?
What do you mean by classified as a drug?
People still see it as a drug. They don't see it as medicinal. Mm-hmm. Even if, let's say, you're trying to, how can I put it? You're trying to, let's say, create awareness on cannabis, mm-hmm. and you approach an organization and say you would like to create awareness on cannabis, but then because it's still classified as a drug, like heroin and cocaine, that's what they call it, what? The gateway drug. Mm-hmm. Is this ever going to change?
Look, I think that in terms of your explanation, that is more a social concept.
Okay.
Because, as a pharmacist myself, the drug is something that can be prescribed for you to help you.
Okay.
You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're putting it in that context with cocaine and all of those things.
Because that's how it's perceived.
Yes.
Yeah.
But perception is a social construct.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about cannabis plant in terms of the Drugs and Drugs Trafficking Act, mm-hmm. It still falls under Schedule 2 of the Drugs and Drugs Trafficking Act. Mm. And that is something that the Department of Justice needs to address. Mm-hmm. I cannot comment on the social perception of cannabis as a drug and what it does to society and those things, because that's not part of SAHPRA's mandate. Our mandate is to make medicines and making sure that medicines are controlled, as well as that the quality, safety, and the efficacy of the medicine, when somebody uses it for medicinal purposes, is correct.
So basically, I should leave that question for the Department of Justice. Got it. Okay, let's speak about the products. CBD products. Mm-hmm. How does SAHPRA classify those products? Especially with a lot of people that within the cannabis industry that produce these products. Mm-hmm. Are you able to speak on that?
Yes, I can. So CBD in particular is under Schedule 4 of the Medicines Act, which means that it needs to be prescribed by a medical practitioner. However, under Schedule 4, under CBD, where it's inscribed, there's an exception that says, except in complementary medicines, right? So people can manufacture complementary medicines, but the medicine must comply with the definition of a complementary medicine as SAHPRA defines it. Mm-hmm. And then also those people need to be licensed in order to manufacture complementary medicines. Mm-hmm. So when people are putting CBD into medicines, calling it complementary medicines, it needs to actually fit in with the frameworks that SAHPRA has provided in order for it to be exempted But obviously, what is a medicine?
Mm.
Essentially, if you are putting CBD into something and you are making sort of generalized claims or any sort of medicinal claims, that then starts to fall into the definition of a medicine, and you then need to comply with what SAHPRA requires.
And obviously, all this information is out there in the public for people to know exactly what the requirements are.
Yes, that is in the public.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty then. I think we're done. Was there anything that you wanted to add? Wait. I have one more question. There is a lot of perception in regards to SAHPRA that, because you guys are the ones when it was declared that, not for recreational side, but for medicinal side, that, cannabis was now going to be a bit relaxed. A lot of people see you guys as the controlling individuals or organization in regards to cannabis. Is this true?
We control a large part of it, but we don't control every aspect of the plant.
Okay.
SAHPRA, as I've said, is the Health Products Regulatory Authority.
Yeah.
And our concern is the medicinal side of the plant. So when the Constitutional Court judgment came out, and in order to enable private use, we had to make changes to our schedules under Schedule 6 and under the CBD, or mostly under the Schedule 6 for THC. We had to make changes to those schedules in order to allow people to be exempted if they are using it for private purposes in private settings. So we had to actually do that. But while we were doing that, we were also working on a framework, because we then removed THC from Schedule 7 and we moved it into Schedule 6. And what that basically means is that there's tight control around the substance, but it doesn't mean that it can't be prescribed for medicinal use. And so therefore SAHPRA then had to put in mechanisms to allow for the cultivation of cannabis for medicinal use. So we moved things into Schedule 6. We started creating frameworks for the cultivation of cannabis for medicinal use. But we actually then jotted something down and we created a framework. And yes, the schedules may have had limits, but there's good reasons for that. As you know, South Africa is a signatory to the 1961 Single Convention on Narcotics. So we had to make sure that there was no diversion, because what they require is that we control and report on anything used for medicinal or scientific purposes. And because this framework was for medicinal purposes, we need to make sure that there was reporting mechanisms, that there was controls, there was no diversion. So we had to put in a lot of these frameworks. So I think the perception comes from the fact that because we had to create these frameworks, it looked as though, or it might have been perceived that SAHPRA was the only regulator that dealt with making cannabis accessible to the public. But it needs to be clarified that SAHPRA created accessibility for medicinal use.
And you've said that several times. I'm sure people now understand. Can you name the other regulators?
Well, I mean, it depends on the product.
Okay.
People have been wanting to use this for food. People have been wanting to use and I'm not saying THC, I'm talking about the cannabis plant, because the cannabis plant has got a lot of cannabinoids.
Yeah.
It's only CBD that can be exempted, but the actual cannabis plant, besides the cannabinoids, has also got agricultural use. It's got industrial use. Many times people are telling us about how hemp, which is the low THC, can be used to create dashboards or even textiles and those sorts of things. So I mean, we only manage the medicinal side, but the non-medicinal side for the low THC cannabis falls under the Department of Agriculture with the Plant Improvement Act. There's the Food Directorate. There's also people that have to regulate cosmetics. What happens to things that go into animal feed? How do we use that? So it's not just about the medicinal side, and you'll clearly see that if you look at what SAHPRA has put in place, we don't really talk. It's not really clarified. Some people may interpret it as that, but we don't really talk about the other sectors. It's somebody else that now needs to step in. So based on what happened, and I'm sure all your listeners know about the Pakisa that happened
I was going to get to
with
that.
government.
Yeah.
Basically, The Pakisa has said, let's grab hold of these sectors, let's put in enabling regulation, and everybody there needs to play their part in coming and giving the South African public frameworks in order to make the best out of this plant.
Speaking of the Pakisa, is the plant ever going to be fully regulated, do you think?
I think in the future, yes. I think
how near is this future?
Look, it's not the yes, there's the cannabis master plan, yes, there are departments that are driving it, but how the cannabis framework started coming around, because of the Constitutional Court judgment, we had to put in certain things. So the Department of Justice had to do something, and the Department of Health had to do something with regards to the Medicines Act. But what we are doing now, and what has come out of the Pakisa, that there needs to be a whole plant approach, and all the government departments that are impacted by the whole plant needs to now all come together, which is what we did with the Pakisa. We've listened to everybody, all our stakeholders, and we then have to go back and start working on things, enabling mechanisms for whole plant use. Mm-hmm. But you can imagine that there are dependencies between all the different departments, there's contingencies. So it's not to say that there isn't progress, and there's not to say that there isn't pressure. There is pressure from the top.
The top meaning the presidency.
Yes, and the president has made it very clear in the seminar that we need to get a whole plant approach use of the cannabis plant. And I'm not just talking about the high THC plant that we would use in the medicinal sphere, but also the low THC hemp, so that we can maximize economic benefit from the whole plant use. But I can't answer your question as to when, because there are things and contingencies and dependencies that government departments need to arrange and implement and develop in order for this to happen.
I ask this because we've been waiting.
Yes.
Even though there's pressure, even though you speak of the SOD, I'm sure a lot of people watching are like, we've heard this before. We just want something to happen already.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I can say the Pakisa was a very good platform as a change agent.
100%. I'm glad to hear that. Is there anything you would like to add, maybe that I did not ask, that you think is crucial for the viewers to know?
Well, I think what the viewers should know is, based on the media statement that was provided by the presidency from the Pakisa, is that change is happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
We must just be patient.
Yes.
Continue to be patient.
I can understand, that patience might be running, but it is something that that at least SAHPRA is very focused on in terms of enabling legislation.
Okay. Thank you so much for embracing us with your presence and answering all the questions that you did. We are very happy that we came to SAHPRA. I now understand a lot of things, and I hope that the viewers understand as well. So thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much for watching, and remember to cannabis responsibly at all times. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe, like, and share buttons below. We would also appreciate your comments. And remember to cannabis responsibly at all times.